Greetings, programs, and welcome to a new episode of the Awesome Friday podcast, the podcast where we review two new things every week. My name is Matthew, and with me, as always, is Captain Hot Takes. How are you, Captain Hot Takes?
That's Mr. Hot Takes to you, thank you.
I think Captain works better.
I didn't spend 10 years in Mr. School just to be called Captain Hot Takes. I'm fine. I get the feeling if you like the two movies that we're going to talk about today, you might have more hot takes to add to the pile. I'm okay. I am sleepy and grumpy and my filter's off. So good luck. Good luck, everyone.
Well, that'll make for a good episode, I think.
It always does, doesn't it? When British sarcasm is dialed up to 100, then you know you're in for a good ride. That's for sure. I'm okay. I have been playing a video game.
Ooh.
This is my big news. I bought a Steam Deck, by the way. It's really good. But not on the Steam Deck. I've been playing the new Plague Tale game, which fills the screen with up to 30,000 rats. There's a fact for you. I'm not sure if you know this franchise, but it's one of...
I do not. Should I know this franchise?
Plague Tale Innocence is about a French girl called Amicia who... basically protects her little brother who has this blood disease that makes him attract and then control rats. And of course, it's 1800s France, and all the church are after him. And it's a wonderful game about protection. And this is the sequel. And basically, it's a horror game with tons of rats in it. So if you like or dislike rats, this is the game for you. It's very, very good.
So the main character is like Ratcatcher from Suicide Squad.
No. The main character is the big sister Amicia, and for 99% of the last game, the rats were enemies. And then, of course, at the end, the little boy finds a way to control them, but he's now lost that, so they're enemies again. So it's they are. Have a look at some videos because it's basically a wave of rats, and it is disgusting and terrifying. And it's a great. It's one of those occasions where I think they worked out the technical aspect of doing it, of having this. I would be very interested if they designed it as water and then just gave it lots of little rat attributes for the water, because it feels like waves. It feels like they designed that and then thought, well, let's make a game around it, and then they made this really amazing game around it. And I love third-person stories with a protection angle. I think that's really my kind of thing. Some light puzzling and beautiful graphics, and that's what this is. So I've been playing a bit of that and a bit of this, but honestly not enough that I'm really past the first couple of hours, because I've been watching other things, two of which we'll be talking about today. What have you been watching?
Fun. It's October, so I've been watching. If anyone is following my Letterboxd, which feel free to do that. I've been watching a lot of horror movies with my wife, which has been quite good. I also recently received the Criterion Godzilla Showa era collector's edition set thing, and I received that last week, and I finally cracked it open and started watching Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla today. And
how much did you pay for that?
No,
in total, I understood that it was a lot of money, and then I looked how much it was in the sale and realized you didn't buy it in the sale.
No, I bought it before the sale. I didn't know the sale was coming. And also, when I realized I actually had $60 or $70 worth of gift cards, so it wasn't so bad, but it wasn't as good as if I had known the sale was coming. But
it's like one movie.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful though. Like I've seen, I think almost all of them before, and I've never seen them look like. Like, I know people who are listening to this who are like cinephiles are like gonna call me an idiot, but like there really is a difference between high quality streaming and even just a regular Blu-ray. Like it is so much better.
It really is. But also, Criterion do really good Blu-ray transfers, and that is a thing. Like piss poor transfers to Blu-ray, unfortunately, is a thing, because we watched Stardust last night with the kids, which is a wonderful movie for the most part. But the Blu-ray transfer was awful, just grainy and noisy, and all the darks were fuzzy as hell, and that annoys me as well, because Blu-ray was meant to be the chosen one.
I mean, it was never going to be though. Like, there's always something else coming. But you're right. Like, there's definitely a lot of them that were just like,
yeah,
let's just flip the upscale switch and
yeah,
like, on a
absolutely.
DVD. Like, it's not
Yeah,
great. Which, on the one hand, is like, sure, it created this market for like boutique resellers who do remastering and special editions with special features. But
mhm,
the downside is that those are all awesome and fucking expensive.
yes,
So, like,
yeah,
I don't know if anyone else has bought anything from Criterion, especially here living in Canada, where I don't want to say how much I spent on this Godzilla thing, and I will say that I don't regret it. But also, I had to pay like $50 in duty or something. I don't remember what it was. It was a week ago, but like I got hit with a duty charge because DHL at the border, and I'm just so tired of that. I'm so
I
tired. It's like,
remember when I bought my lightsaber and I didn't know that paying for duty was a thing, and I thought I was being scammed at the door. I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean I have to pay more now because it came from there? Don't you know
yeah.
where I'm from? We don't pay extra."
Well, the annoying thing is that, like, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, and maybe someone who's listening can tell me, but like, it does to me because I've put no effort into researching why it happens, but it does seem fairly arbitrary as to when and where it happens. Like, because I've bought other expensive stuff from the States and not had to pay duty.
Yeah, yeah, me
And
too.
so I'm pretty sure the answer is that part of this is that certain courier companies whose names start with a D and rhyme with HL just collect the extra fees because they can. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I've been in that boat as well for sure, but it's worth it. That box set is gorgeous. It's gorgeously put together, and
oh
it
yeah, it's
doesn't
great.
surprise me that the transfers are good as well. And that's a real keeper. And not that you'd ever sell it, but those things hold their value really well as well because they are just so well put together.
Yeah, and I'm at a point where, like, when I was young and stupid, I basically was like, yeah, digital's the future. So I don't really have a lot of
Mm,
physical media stuff, and now I really take quite a lot of care when I do buy an actual thing. And so, like, I, I I wouldn't have bought it if I wasn't going to be confident that it was going to be gorgeous, and it is.
I've actually stopped buying digital films completely.
Yeah, I mean,
I
you're in the
I
right camp.
I subscribe to so many places as well. So usually, if I want to watch something, it's around. But if I love a movie, I buy it on Blu-ray or even my 4K collection is growing quite nicely actually. And I I totally fell into that trap as well of thinking that accessibility was key, and then there's been so many stories about people moving countries and large chunks of their movie collection just disappearing, and even uh, with all the stuff that's going on with HBO and everything that's being gutted from HBO because of Warner Brothers, and it's gone. Like there's some series of animations where
Yeah, they're just gone.
they never got a DVD or a Blu-ray, but I don't think obviously no one's getting a DVD, but it's gone forever because they've just wiped it so they don't have to pay residuals, and so you've got years of work for all these people, and it's just gone, and it's almost like they want people to pirate again. Do you know what I mean? It almost feels
Yeah,
like they want people to do this again. So I
it's funny.
definitely,
It's funny too. Like the most recent example, and to be clear, if you're listening in Canada or the United States, which is where most of our listeners are, like this movie, as far as I understand, is staying on Netflix. But a great horror movie from a couple of years ago called His House, which is a British movie that premiered on Netflix, is leaving Netflix in the UK. It was a BBC co-production, and I guess Netflix let the license there elapse or something. But either way, it's leaving Netflix at the end of this month, and there's apparently, as of this recording, there's no plans for a physical release or any other kind of streaming debut. It's just gone. It'll just be gone on October 30th as of right now,
yeah.
which is a shame because if you live in the UK, that's a great movie and you should totally watch it. And it has a lot to say about the immigrant experience in your country.
Yeah, I've not heard of that, but I'm just looking at it now. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's
But
super good.
the, things just feel like they're more disposable now as well. Like they're here for the metrics. They get the metrics the first couple of weeks, and then they either get buried or, in many cases, now completely just removed. It's
I
very
mean,
it's
yeah.
and it's yeah, it's sad.
Hey, I'm
Anyway,
just, I'm just old enough to remember when the promise of the digital future was that everything would be easy to access everywhere, and the companies who could have made that possible decided to make it harder, and that is annoying.
Streaming, which was an alternative to cable, is now just cable under another name because
Yeah.
everyone wants a slice of the pie, and so Lord knows I've already got way too many different services. And the annoying thing is that they've all got something on them that either me or my family watch. So, but at this point, it doesn't matter. The only thing we'd keep if we got rid of them all is Discovery, so we could watch Bobby Flay every night because we're big fans of the Bobby Flay cinematic universe and everything he creates. So, um,
Well, he has a pretty compelling presence on food TV.
he's so
If it turns out that he's a total asshole, please nobody tell me because I enjoy his shows and I
I
don't want
don't
to have to
think
stop.
I don't think it'll be hidden. I know one thing I really like about him is that he's really, really New York. When he gets into it, when he gets stressed, he goes really like Brooklyn, and I
Yeah.
really like hearing that. He just sounds very authentic to me. Okay,
Yeah.
what should we talk about today? Bobby Flay,
Oh yeah,
season 21 of Beat Bobby Flay. Sure.
we're just cutting off the banter here, hey.
I'm,
11,
I feel
11
like
minutes. We must proceed.
I'm guilty of going down Banter Street far too long, so I'm trying to bring it back. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and just talk.
That's totally fair. We should make that a different podcast on the feed.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're talking about two movies this week, and we're going to talk about. I think maybe lesser known is the wrong word, but we're going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
the more regional hit that is coming out on Apple TV Plus. As of this writing, as of this recording, it should actually be on Apple TV Plus already. It is the Ethan Hawke and Ewan McGregor starring Raymond and Ray, which is a dramatic film.
I love it when you go like 40s transatlantic.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome to our dramatic film.
Yeah, it's a dramatic film with two brothers seeking to come to terms with the death of the father.
What secrets will emerge in Raymond and Ray?
Yeah, that's actually pretty much it. That's the whole pitch. It's two estranged, well, not estranged, but two half brothers who are, if they weren't half brothers, they probably wouldn't be friends. And because they are half brothers, they share this bond that's been forged by their abusive father's abuse. And they get the news that their father has passed, and they go to the funeral together. And it turns out that their father's dying wish is that they would dig his grave together. And the rest of the movie is them doing that, and secrets are revealed and other connections are revealed, and slowly but surely both characters come to terms with their father's demise and the influence on their
Oh,
lives.
spoilers. Whoa. I mean, because no one would see any of that coming if they haven't ever seen any movies ever.
Or the trailer for this movie, or read the marketing for this movie. Like, this is a movie where, like, by the end of it, you will be like, of course that's where it ended, because that's where these movies end.
Yeah.
Where, the journey is the point, friends. It's, so the question is the journey any good? And I will say it's totally fine. It's absolutely adequate. How do you feel about it, Simon?
Nope. It's a weird movie because there's one big twist which comes exactly where you expect the big twist to come.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't characterize any single moment in this
that's what I mean.
as a twist.
It wants it to be a big twist, and when it happens, you're like, well, sure. Well, of course. I mean, it's that kind of movie. If you've ever seen movies where family connections slowly get revealed, then you will not be surprised by any part of this movie at all.
Yeah, that's fair criticism. I think. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. My coda to that statement was, unfortunately, none of it is done very well at all. Like the writing and the direction is so heavy-handed, and as you said to me, I bashed my microphone. Almost everyone feels completely unreal. Like there's no, you can't have any emotional connection with anything going on because it's so heavy-handed. It's written in such a way that nobody says anything. And actually, nobody's not true, but almost nobody says anything that sounds remotely like what a human would say in that situation. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I sort of disagree because I feel like for a story that's called Raymond and Ray, it's about a pair of brothers who are ostensibly co-protagonists of the film. One of them feels like a human being, and the other one does not. One of them feels like a rough draft of a human being, perhaps, or at least the script he's given feels like a draft or two away from being. And I'm tempted to. I mean, I think that sorry, Ewan, but I don't think the performance was great, but I do think he didn't really have very good material to work with either, as compared especially to Ethan Hawke, who is really good in the movie. I thought, and
Yeah.
him and the manic pixie dream girl he gets to interact with both feel like human beings to me. And there's a moment where
Or do you mean the
um,
nurse, not the manic pixie? The
the
nurse.
nurse is totally she's a manic pixie dream nurse as well.
Oh.
She's just played by she's just played by
It's
Sophie
Isaac Bell.
Okonedo instead of the
Maribel
other lady
Verdú.
who's Maribel Verdú. And it's interesting because there's definitely a moment where that could have ruined that for me. That I think a lesser movie probably would have done. Um, right towards the end, there's a moment where it could have that whole dynamic could have been really ruined, and I think it took the braver choice in that one instance. But Ray, Ethan Hawke's Ray, uh, who is the of the two brothers, he's the one who wears his like anger and abuse on his sleeve, and like represses the rest of his emotions, and he feels like a real, true human being. And Ewan McGregor's Raymond, who is supposed to be the super like he's also been super abused as a child and as an adult by his father, and is supposed to be this like he's supposed to be have this like it feels like he's supposed to have this really super repressed rage that pops out every once in a while, but he doesn't play it that way at all, and I don't think it's written that way at all either. So when it does happen, it feels totally out of place. And like it's interesting because like I think I said to you earlier this week that like it wouldn't take that many changes to make it believable. Like just take out one or two of the earlier eruptions, or make him angrier in general, angrier and in more denial. And like that's a pretty not a very big change when you consider the storyline of the movie.
So there's two problems here. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. The first problem is this is not a good film in terms of its writing or direction. But Ethan Hawke is absolutely phenomenal in his role.
Yeah,
And his role is the only one that is written with any kind of believability. Or it's either that or he's just much better at this in this movie than Ewan McGregor is, because I think the major problem with Ewan McGregor's character, yeah, the script, he's underwritten and he's written poorly, but Ewan McGregor, this is not a good performance by him. His line delivery is really off. Like it doesn't. He's a really intelligent actor who knows about pauses and thinking time and effective delivery, and it's not on display here at all. Now I don't know if that's a direction thing. It sounds like he's struggling with his accent for the whole thing. He's got an American accent and he is fighting that accent every step of the way. And it just I it got to the point when we got in the last third of the movie, we kind of cut between Ethan Hawke and his nurse friend, played really well by Sophie Okonedo. Um, and their story actually, for a small moment, felt like one of these Ethan Hawke two-handers, like the Sunrise movies, where it was just watching um, this very bruised and battered person kind of slowly open up, and then we cut back to Ewan McGregor and his um, scenes with another woman, Lucia, and my heart just went, oh god, like if only we didn't cut back, because everything that Ewan McGregor does or says in this movie kind of ruins the movie, kind of makes the movie worse. And I think it's a combination of direction, performance, and script. There was nothing for him, but at many points I was thinking, would if you'd put Oscar Isaac in this role, would it have been as bad? Like if you'd put someone who had like you say, tempered a bit of that anger, showed a bit of it, or tempered it, or so when it did erupt, it was more believable. Would it have been as bad? I just don't know. I don't. This
Yeah,
is not a good day. Ewan McGregor did not have a good day on this film.
yeah. I don't like to do that sort of like what if other person thing. I tend to try to look for like why did this happen? And you're right. Ewan McGregor is actually a really good actor, generally speaking. Um, and I didn't really think he was fighting his accent. I feel like he was maybe fighting direction as well. I don't know. I feel like he probably gave the director exactly what he was asked for, but he was not happy about it. Sort of my read. Um, I think it didn't help. I think another big problem, because I actually think that Ewan McGregor was really good in the first third or so of the movie when it was just him and Ethan Hawke. I thought him and Ethan Hawke together as sort of like two
Mm-hmm.
sides of this abused coin, I thought was really interesting. I thought they have really good and interesting chemistry and a really like palpable shared but unspoken backstory and trauma, like these sort of like terrible life experiences that bind people together. I thought that was all really well done. But
Mm-hmm.
then in the back half, when they sort of split off and end up with their respective manic pixie dream girls, again, like Sophie Okonedo feels like a real person, and Maribel Verdú does not. And I feel like the combination of her being like, I'm sure there's a better term for it than manic pixie dream girl, but like, she's the free spirited mid 40s, sexually adventurous ex lover of the and best friend of their father, who, spoiler alert, Ewan McGregor ends up pairing off with at the end of the movie. And like, it's such a like typical example of that like man healed by free woman trope. And he's so underwritten and she's so stereotypically written that none of it really works. Whereas like Hawk and Okonedo at least feel like natural for most of their interaction. Like they feel like real
Mm-hmm.
human beings. So
Yeah.
I sort of agree. Every time in the back half, every time it cuts back to McGregor, I was kind of like, just get back to the good part of the story.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
and then
There's a
there's a whole subplot where like their father actually has a bunch of other sons, and one of them makes sense to be there, and two of them show up for reasons. Like
uh,
I guess they needed
make,
more hands to dig the hole. Like I
yeah,
don't.
make it more entertaining. I do you know what I think that there's one kind of interesting aspect that everyone else who knew the father, there's like a thread all the way through that these two boys hated the father because it's clear that the father abused them. But everyone they speak to loved their father, and the two boys, the younger acrobat sons they meet, even though they didn't know him, they're like mirror reflections of what they could have been if they hadn't been suffered their father's abuse. And but it's never really like taken anywhere. It's a really interesting
Yeah,
idea of they got all the abuse and nobody else did, so that should make them more angry and tied together more, or that's a really interesting thread, and it's just not followed. As is Ewan McGregor's like supposed OCD at dealing with going back to the father's home is used once in the middle of the movie and then referenced as the final gesture of the movie at a time where it's indicated that he does it because he feels unsafe. But at the end of this movie, he's resolved his arc. He's safe with Lucia, and the father has gone. So it doesn't make sense for that to still be happening. It's just yet another underdeveloped idea in this movie, I feel.
yeah, kind of frustrating. And like I say, ultimately, I think it was fine. Like I think if you're going to sit down and watch a movie on a Sunday with your dad, you could definitely do worse. Um, but it's not great. It's just fine. It's just fine. It's fine. I think it's probably if you like Ethan Hawke, you should probably watch the movie. How about that?
I would agree. I mean, the stars I'm going to give this film are purely for Ethan Hawke's performance. Who he is a brilliant actor, and I actually think he's getting better like every year. And he's always been good, but I think he's really like found. something else as he's gotten to this stage of his life now, where he's not young and beautiful anymore, and he is able to play. This the Ray his Ray had so much pain, and when that pain is exposed and um, defined, you can really see it in him, and it's really weird to dislike a movie so much and yet have this performance that blows you away. And there's my favorite scene of the whole movie, I think, is when he is in the bar with Sophie Okonedo, and they're just talking about his wife and he what he orders, and they're kind of just chatting, and it feels really real,
Hmm.
and lots of little things get exposed, and then the movie goes back to giant, heavy-handed like twists and turns, and it's like, oh god, just stop. And I will say as well, I know this is a very me thing because I am completely defined by music in all aspects. Everything, games, movies, like life, music is it really controls how I feel about something. And this movie has one of the main themes is jazz music. It's Ray's thing is that he's an ex-jazz player, and so you can guess what happens at the end. And so, but the jazz music that is used to underscore some of the very deep and serious, even dialogue scenes, is like upbeat jazz, and it sounds like someone has pressed play on the wrong tape dubbing these scenes. It's completely wrong, and I
Yeah,
know that's a very me thing. And there's a
honestly,
bit.
no, I don't disagree. I would say that the problem is actually that like occasionally it works. Like if it never worked, at least it would be interesting. But occasionally it does. Occasionally it's the right choice. Like a stop clock is right twice a day, and occasionally and to be clear, I think Jeff Beal's score on its own is actually quite good.
Yeah, oh, it's lovely.
It's just that, like, yeah, the like tone that underscores each scene is often sort of incongruent. Like, you're right. Like most of the time, you're like, why is this like we're at
Yeah,
a funeral, sir? Like it's just,
there's
but then occasionally when it does work, you're like, yeah, that was really nice. I don't like, and that's sort of like a metaphor for the whole movie for me. It's like when it works, you're like, yeah, yeah, man, this is
there-
good. And then the
there's
rest of the
one
time, you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
there's one bit where Ethan Hawke is chatting up a girl in a like a convenience store in a gas station, and Ray's watching her because Raymond doesn't have the confidence of Ray, and they're back in the car, and he's like, "What were you doing there?" Ewan McGregor's, "Well, why would you?" I won't do the accent. What were you doing there? And he's like, "Just talking." And then it comes out that his wife left him, and it's all very grumpy and dark. And the soundtrack is
Yeah.
just stop, like stop. It's this movie, and I will say there are two moments of Ethan Hawke miming trumpet playing, and he does it twice, and the second time is great. The first time, it's laughably bad, where all the notes are changing and his fingers aren't moving at all. It's like magic trumpet blowing. Again, this
Yeah,
might be a me. That might be a me problem.
I actually I was wondering about this as well because I know that Ethan Hawke knows how to play the trumpet because I know he played Chet Baker and learned for that movie. Um, so I was wondering if maybe the music choice changed in that first scene. Like maybe because he's good in the second one. You're right, and I know he knows how to play that instrument. So I wonder if they like changed the selection so he's playing one thing but we're hearing another.
Well,
But
that's interesting. Maybe, yeah.
anyway, maybe they like couldn't get the licensing rights, or maybe the director heard a different song that he wanted. I don't know I don't know. I don't have any inside baseball. But
I don't know. I don't know. I don't care.
yeah,
I find it very hard to recommend this movie apart from one phenomenal performance, and I don't know if that's a recommendation or not. I don't know. How many stars are you giving this?
I don't know. I was set to give it 3 when we came into this conversation, but the more that we talk about it, the more I think I might give it a 2. Because,
Yeah,
like I say, the stuff that worked for me did really work for me, and the stuff that didn't, I was like, ugh, can we get back to the stuff that's working?
yeah,
It's like I would argue. I mean, I think I might still give it 3 because I think that roughly speaking, about 3/5 of the movie works for me.
well,
We'll say
that would be a 3 out of 5 then.
so. That would be a 3 out of 5, and basically that means that the first act before they get to the funeral, works, and then from that point on, Ethan Hawke's story works for me. And yeah, that comprises about 3/5 of the movie. And Ethan Hawke is super good. So yeah, we'll say 3. Again, like if you need a movie to watch with your dad, or if you're a dad that has an adult son, like watch it on a Sunday afternoon. That's the kind of movie this is. And then
Don't do that
honestly,
with your stepmother.
you'll probably just forget it next week when you do. I watched this movie 3 days ago, and I'm struggling to remember some of the details. So it's like ever so barely a 3 out of 5.
I think you're being extremely generous. It's a 2 out of 5, and I should reduce it to a 1 out of 5 for the worst shot we're driving a car in a studio scene I think I've seen in modern filmmaking. Like the least realistic dialogue in a car, and honestly, we're driving. Like I've seen like children's programs do it more realistically. This is a 2 stars from me, purely for Ethan Hawke's phenomenal performance. Uh, and
Yeah, I think that's fair.
nothing else.
Yeah, no, I think 3 is too generous. I think I'm gonna give it a 2. I think 3 is too generous.
Oh, what have I done? Yeah.
Which is just, it's a shame though, because I really wanted, like, I still think that I'm always on team see it for yourself. So honestly, see it for yourself. But you're right. I think the parts that don't work do basically, like, I think they're roughly equal with the parts that do and don't work are roughly equal. So it would be 2.5 out of 5, which means for me it's a
Don't do
2.
halves.
So we don't do halves.
I'm on team time is valuable, so don't watch this movie unless you want to see a great Ethan Hawke performance.
Well, I mean, everyone should want to see a great Ethan Hawke performance. So there's that.
There's so many to choose from, though. Go and watch Moon Knight. Just because it's great. Or go and watch.
I actually thought he was one of my least favorite parts of Moon Knight. So maybe not.
Maybe. What's a great Ethan Hawke movie? I haven't seen any of the Sunsets or Before Sunsets.
Oh, all the befores are great. Training Day is great. Sinister is great. He's great in The Black Phone. I mean,
there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great movies.
Dead Poet Society, Gattaca.
Dead Poet Society. Oh, Gattaca's great. Yeah.
What else? I mean, Boyhood. I don't actually like Boyhood, but he's good in Boyhood.
He's in Boyhood.
He's the dad in Boyhood. What else? He's been in so much stuff. He's a really prolific actor. I haven't seen it actually, but one of my biggest like canon gaps from the last couple of years is apparently he's wonderful in First Reformed, which is meant to be like a great movie. Yeah, he's been working for a long time and he's put out a lot of great work. So you could, there are definitely. Oh, he's in The Northman. You could watch The Northman, which I can't remember. I think you didn't actually really like, but he's in The Northman and he's great in his small part in The Northman.
He's the who's he in The Northman? The father, right?
He's the king. Yeah, he gets killed.
That's right.
Early on.
But he's really, really good in that.
Yeah.
I wanted the Northman to be more like the Green Knight. Really.
But yeah, this is the dude who puts out, like, people make fun of Nicolas Cage for putting out like 3 to 5 movies a year, but Ethan Hawke puts out 3 to 5 movies a year. Like he works a lot.
Huh.
Yeah,
he's in the Purge, the first Purge. I didn't know that.
Well, to be clear, he's in the first Purge movie, not the movie called The First Purge. But yes, he is.
Is there really a movie called The First Purge?
There is, yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's like the 4th. I don't know. It's one of them. But yeah. And interestingly, that movie is the least interesting of the Purge movies for a couple of reasons. But that's a whole other podcast.
Are any of them interesting?
Yes. Yeah, some of them are. Yeah, especially when they get very overtly like, the elites are doing this to the poors for reasons. They get really interesting, actually. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, Ethan Hawke is great, and you should watch a movie that he stars in. Whether it's this one, I don't particularly care. Yeah.
Oh my God, he played. I'm just looking at his work. He in 2013 to 2014, he played Macbeth on Broadway. Now that would be a time travel thing to catch, and he did The Cherry Orchard and The Winter's Tale as well.
He did a movie, I can't remember, like late 90s or early zeros.
Hamlet?
That was like Hamlet but set in like a modern context.
That's
That's
right. I saw
super
that.
super interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Huh. Okay, so yes, Ethan Hawke good. This movie bad.
yeah. Oh,
Watch it. Watch at your peril.
Lord of War. He's in Lord of War. I love that movie. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. We have better things to talk about, and we're going to move on now from the two-star Raymond and Ray to the stars to be determined uh, Cannes Film Festival Best Director winning Decision to Leave. Oh, and Simon takes a deep breath. Captain Hot Takes coming in
Yeah,
hot.
it's going to be a very difficult film to talk about. Uh,
Why don't you just give us a quick rundown on
sure.
the most basic version of the plot you can break down? And to be clear, folks, this is not an uncomplicated film. It's
Um, yes.
it's it's written with nuance and laced with subtlety, and is twisty turny, and a bit timey wimey. And yeah, go ahead,
So
Simon. Tell us what you think it's about.
if someone makes a decision to leave.
Yes, someone makes the
Um,
choice to depart. Good,
um,
excellent.
if you've seen any like Michael Douglas, Sharon Stone, late 90s like steamy erotic thrillers where the policeman investigates the wife of a man who apparently died through an accident, but you suspect that she might be a femme fatale and be involved, then it's basically that. Like it's the there's a dead guy and it looks like he's had an accident, and uh, Park Hae-il plays a police detective investigating um, the circumstances of this man's death, and he comes across in the course of his detections the wife, and he starts suspecting that she may have had a hand in his death, and gets really involved in the case. It's hard to really say too much because his he his marriage has lost its luster. He's working away from home a lot of the time. He's moving apart from his wife, and I think you've seen movies before where these middle-aged men see a spark somewhere else, even though the spark may actually be really dangerous, and get drawn to that flame. So he basically becomes besotted with the details of this case, for better or worse, even when he knows he has crossed several lines in doing so. And the movie is kind of two halves, pretty neatly carved into two halves, which paint a story of: is it love? Is it betrayal? Is it real? Who's telling the truth? Who's lying? And of course, you find out at the end. It's not left unexplained. But I will say, I'm glad to hear it won the best director at Cannes, because I stopped taking notes. Usually, when I watch a film, um, I write down a couple of scenes or moments that I think are particularly excellent, that really work for me. And I basically stopped in this movie because every frame of this film is so like amazingly composed. The direction of this film is mind-blowingly good, and the way that it mixes narrative styles into the film and it all fits together is mind-blowing. There's a number of theatrical tools that the director uses to bring actors into scenes where they didn't actually exist, but they are part of the narrative. It's incredibly directed movie, like astounding. And the fact that the entire movie is a bit uneven is exactly how I felt after Snowpiercer, which I know you like very much, but Snowpiercer, incredibly directed, really uneven. I think that's probably going to be my hot take on Decision to Leave as well. I mean, what did you think?
Um, I don't particularly disagree with anything you're saying, to be totally honest. My my hot take is that you say that it's very neatly cut into two halves, and it's kind of not. It's kind of cut into like 1/3 and 2/3, but in the wrong proportions. I think it's like overlong. I think I'm going to say that I'm going to come out quite positive on this film very generally, but it is. I felt that it was way too long.
Yes, I agree.
I think a perfect way to describe it is to take what you already said, is to basically take Basic Instinct and then cross it with a noir film from like the the late pre-code era or early code era, and cross those two things together, and then substitute in smartphones for cigarettes, basically, and that's this movie. I've never seen a film use smartphones quite so effectively.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of really interesting takes on how to use smartphones in the past like decade. But the way that like everyone is so connected but also disconnected is very sort of astute for how we just are in the world. I think that the lead actors, Park Hae-il and Tang Wei, as the detective and femme fatale, respectively, are both wonderful. I think that all their scenes together have a very palpable sexual tension and like emotional tension as well. That a lesser movie would be one of those things, but not both.
Yeah.
But they're so wonderful in all their scenes together, and again, like you said, especially once Park Hae-il's character, Detective Hae-jun, once he fully admits to himself that he's gone over a line, things get a lot more interesting at that point for a while, anyway. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's definitely worth seeing. I think that I can't remember the last time I saw a scene with such precise cinematic choreography.
Yeah.
And then very early,
glorious, isn't it?
Yeah, a very early example of that is, Hae-jun is staking out So-rae, the femme fatale, and he's looking at her from a car. She's in an apartment, and he puts his binoculars up to his eyes, and suddenly he's in the room. And the camera movement comes in on the binoculars, and suddenly he's in the room. And then when it comes back to him in the car, there's a shot past like it's a window or a mirror. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like it comes back to the binoculars coming away from his eyes, and it is timed and choreographed flawlessly. Like it is so well directed. So for all of these reasons, it's an amazing film. It's just a little too long.
It is too long and a little too contrived, and I try really, really hard not to judge other culture movies by the Western like 3-act structure, but this really could have used a little tightening and shortening. And
I don't even think that I don't even mind that it's contrived. Like I'm sort of fine with the idea that it's contrived. It's just a little too long. I just don't know other words to say it. There's just a little bit, great films have a great balance of times where things are happening and times where everyone, the characters and the audience included together, have time to breathe. And this film has too much time to breathe.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely recommend people watch it though, because there's one scene in particular that I actually stood up like out of shock that it was so good. And it's an interrogation scene where the camera is static, and it is on the right hand of the shot is Hae-jun, the detective, on the left hand you've got So-rae, the wife, and then you've got a two-way mirror, and you see their reflections. And as they're interrogating, as the power of the conversation, because of course in a very Sharon Stone way, she kind of manipulates the conversation to say everything and nothing at the same time. It's really intelligently written. The forced focus changes not just with the two of them, but also their reflections. So sometimes their reflection is in focus and nothing else is. Sometimes it's both their reflection, sometimes it's both of them in the foreground, and it switches and changes as the conversation flows. And just blew me away. Just absolutely expert direction, and the whole thing Like, cinematic choreography is a really excellent way to put it, because the whole thing is like that. There is not a wasted frame or a wasted moment in this film.
Yeah,
There's
sorry, I didn't mean.
in terms of visual composition and direction, I agree. It has sometimes too much space on. It is too long, but also the second thing that really worked for me is that you've got to have, when you do a movie like this, we've seen many examples when this kind of movie was the big rage in the 90s, where they tried to recreate Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas. And the key is electricity, like dangerous electricity between your leads, led from the woman to the man. Like, the man is almost powerless to go along to drink this in. And I thought Tang Wei was so like phenomenal in creating that same electric charge that was dragging in like a black hole. Like Hae-il could not escape her gravity, and it was again the direction as well. But even just breathing close to each other, and there's a moment where she is helping him sleep by describing a sleep technique, and of course the visuals take us into that as well. And it's phenomenal. And there's one moment where she quietly shows him her wrist with these like emerald buttons on her wrist while their respective husbands and wives are talking. She just has a very quiet, non-verbal, just eyes moment with him, and it is like electrifying.
Yeah,
It's so good.
so good. Yeah, they're so good together. But again, the tension, every kind of tension between them is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
What do
and
you,
yeah,
well, obviously we're not going to explain the ending, but did you like the ending? Did you like the resolution?
uh, I respect it. I don't.
Did
No, I
it work for you?
I think that it will be impossible to speak about without spoiling it.
Sure. I'm just looking for your like blanket opinion, because
Yeah, I don't think I
I
can even give that, to be totally honest. Like, I think it's because I will say that I think the last, as much as I'm saying the film is too long, I think that the last 15 or 20 minutes maybe are kind of excellent. Maybe the best part of the movie. Like like for all I'm talking about how it's overlong, those last 15 20 minutes are like totally engrossing, and I
yeah,
don't want to spoil it at all.
yeah,
Except to say that it's yeah, sure, I'll say it's really good. It makes sense, and I there's many ways it could have gone, and the way it went makes sense to me, and I'm fine with it. And I
sure.
don't want to say anything else because it is so well executed.
Yeah, yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
Sure. Did you like it enough to give it like, I'm interested with your star balance. Like, is this because it's so well done? Do you
Oh,
give it higher stars, or does
this
it
is a
fall?
four star movie for me.
Oh, okay. There
Yeah.
we go.
I think if it was a bit tighter, it might be five. I
Yeah,
don't, but based on the technical execution alone, um, I don't think it was ever going to be. I don't think it could have been below like a three. But
hmm,
between the technical execution and the absolute fire between the
yeah,
leads
yeah.
and just the power of each of their respective performances, like it's four. It's at least four. It's
I
four.
totally agree. And honestly, I watched the first 45 minutes before I had to go and do something else, and I was just speechless. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I studied Hitchcock as part of my film training in university, so it's very significant to me, that kind of Hitchcockian noir mystery style movie. And I've never really thought anyone's made movies like Hitchcock. We've had lots of those kind of style movies, but there's something about his pace and his framing and his delivery and his camera play as well. And I watched the first 45 minutes. I'm like, oh my god, this could be like a modern Hitchcock. This is that quality. The the creativity in how this is unfolding is so mind blowing, and visually, I just want to roll in it. We just want to be absorbed into it. And it's a shame that the rest of the movie kind of dampened that a bit for me. But The that first hour is phenomenal, I think.
Yeah,
So,
and it's weird too because as much as I'm saying that it's a little over long, I also don't really know what you could cut really.
not to, yeah, to tell the story that way, you'd struggle, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
So,
but
so
yeah,
yeah,
it's a full from me as well for sure.
4 stars. Decision to leave. I would say if you were a betting man or woman or anything in between, and you wanted to say which Asian movie will be heavily represented at the Oscars this year, I think you have a pretty much a 50-50 split with this one in Broker. And I kind of, based on the direction, I haven't seen Broker, but based on the direction, I would put money on Park Chan-wook getting some recognition.
Well, especially as it feels a little bit late as well. I haven't seen Handmaiden. By all accounts and purposes, that should have been Oscar. That should have been put forward for the Oscars as well. I know, obviously, Parasite did brilliantly, and it is a brilliant movie and raised the profile even further of Korean cinema. But I
Well,
feel like it's deserved if this
well
did get an Oscar
Park
nod.
Park Chan Wook is also like, um, he's not exactly uninfluential. Like we're talking about the guy who made Old Boy, like which
Yeah, yeah.
is probably the first South Korean film that most of us white folks were like, "Oh shit, that guy can make a movie." Um, and between that and Sympathy for Lady Vengeance and Stoker, I really like Stoker. Like he has made a lot of good movies, and one could argue he's overdue for some more
Yeah,
recognition.
yeah, totally. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be angry if this won the Oscar. It's purely, I mean, technically, it deserves it completely.
Yeah. Well, good.
Good,
Well,
good, good.
let's wrap it up there. I don't know what we're talking about next week before you ask, but I'm working. I got some irons in the fire, so let's worry about that. I have been accredited for the Rain Dance Film Festival, which is out of London, United Kingdom, which I'll be attending virtually, but no idea how much coverage there'll be. Simon, what are you doing this week other than being a working parent?
That's a very good question. I
And
am watching. My TV is Saturday night is Strictly Come Dancing, and then
ooh,
Sunday night is the Strictly results, and then Tuesday is Bake Off. So I have turtle like withdrawn into the shell of British television.
wait,
But
sorry,
I'm
Strictly Come Dancing has a separate results show.
Yes, it has a performance show, and then the public have a day to vote for their favorites, and then there is a results show the next day.
Oh, you learn something every day.
Do you know what's so interesting is watching the American version, which is called Dancing with the Stars,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time as the British one, and it's unwatchable. Like it is so bad, like to fit into that sort of demographic. It's so different in key ways. It's very interesting, but that's a different conversation.
Hmm.
I am catching up with What We Do in the Shadows. I've just finished season 3 finally, and
Nice.
season 4 is waiting for me with its hands open. So I will be going into that because
You know,
what
my wife is finally watching that show, and we just got to the end of season 1 and the Vampiric Council, and that whole Vampiric Council scene is fucking
yeah,
aces.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton. I mean, you don't have to spend too much time in hair and
No,
makeup to make Tilda Swinton a vampire.
honestly, the best part of that whole episode is Evan, the Dark Princess, who is Evan Rachel Wood. There's a moment where like the main characters are being sentenced to die, and she like has there's just a cutaway to her, and she's like, "That's fucking rough." It's just so perfect. Yeah, I might be in love with Evan Rachel Wood, but don't tell my wife.
Just a little bit,
Just a little bit.
just a touch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anywho,
okay. I've got a question for you before you finish because you're watching horror movies with your wife, and for those that don't know, your wife is quite the horror aficionado. And she watches a lot of horror movies, and she likes big, like, um, pedestal, like monument movies as well, and
She likes end of the world movies more specifically.
so, and she likes a couple of movies that I'm in, which makes me happy. But my question for you is, what makes her scared? Like, what kind of movie scares her? Does anything actually scare her? Because your wife is super cool and super chilled, and she's clearly, easily the coolest person any of us know, including ourselves. And so, I can't imagine her getting freaked out at anything. But what freaks her out? What kind of horror movie at Halloween freaks her out?
That's a good question. It seems like the answer is kind of inconsistent, actually. Like she was watching the early 2000s remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre the other day, and which, to be fair, I kind of like too. I don't think it's as good as the original, but it's interesting. And I was like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. I'm just going to go in the other room. And she's like, you can't leave me alone with this one, man. And like, so like, there's definitely stuff that freaks her out. But it's hard to put a pin because, like, at the same time, she'll watch other super gory stuff and be like, yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. It's fine. I think the jump scare in Sinister gets her every time. It gets me every time.
Is that the nun, or is that the guy coming up behind Patrick Wilson? I forget which of these movies does.
Neither. Sinister is one with Ethan Hawke, where he lives in a house where murders occurred.
Oh, okay.
The ones you're thinking about are The Conjuring 2 and Insidious 1, respectively.
The problem is, I really hate jump scares. I really hate them. I enjoy horror where it's slow burning and the screws are turned. I find jump scares really cheap, and they actually take away my enjoyment of movies, which is why I didn't watch Babadook for the longest time, which I really regret, because that is an incredible movie.
So we don't have another hour to talk about this, but jump scares are only cheap when deployed cheaply.
But the way they make me feel is not fun. I don't like them. I don't like how I feel.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, like, there's definitely, like, you can use them well or poorly, like any other cinematic tool. And there's only, like, in the movie Sinister, there's only one legit jump scare, and it's maybe the best jump scare. It is so well deployed. And the rest of the movie is exactly what you're describing. Like, in terms of, like, the slow burn, like,
right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll watch it then.
Yeah.
I mean, the jump scare in Descent is really good. Maybe I do like good ones after all. Maybe I'll rethink that.
This is the thing I find that I found that a lot of people in my conversations about film say they don't like jump scares. Well, what it turns out is they just don't like cheap jump scares. They don't like prolific jump scares. They want the jump scare to be deployed in a way that is meaningful and not just like every 5 minutes because with directors and know what else to do.
Dude, this is our show next week. Let's just do what we love about horror movies for an hour next week for our Halloween show.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse ideas.
And we'll just watch as much as we can this week.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably go. It's been an hour.
Yes.
So let's wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone who is listening today. It does once more seem like there's a couple more of you. So everyone who's new, welcome. Everyone who is not new, also welcome. We love all of you. Hooray!
Hello.
We record this here in Vancouver on the unceded lands of the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations. If you like what you have heard, please consider donating to our Patreon or Ko-fi, which you can find in the show notes or on your podcasting platform of choice. Just hit that subscribe button and the auto download button and give us a 5-star review. That's actually money's nice, but that's also maybe even more meaningful. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we are on the socials. You can find us at Awesome Friday CA on the Twitters. You can find me at SmatthewAF on the Twitters and him at Temporary Pen on the Twitters. And we have an email form on the website. So go to awesomefriday.ca and find all of our other content and all the other things we do. And yeah, that is about it. Once again, I am Matthew. He is Captain Hot Takes. And
Mr.
Thank you for joining us on this Awesome Friday.
Bye.